that better? Okay, thank you. Friends, today we gather to give thanks to God as we seek God's blessings and as we gather to dedicate this Stephen Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It's so good to see all of you here and to be a part of this ceremony and celebration. So let's take a moment for prayer. Gracious God, you stretched out the heavens like a tent. You divided the day from the night. You appointed times and seasons for work and for rest, for tearing down and for building up. You blessed your people through all generations and guided them in life and death. Abraham and Sarah, Moses and Miriam, Isaiah and all the prophets, Mary, mother of our Lord, Peter, James, and John, and all the apostles, and all the saints and witnesses in your church of ages past, in whom and through whom your Spirit spoke and moved. We give you thanks, O God, as we dedicate this center to your glory and praise. Grant us faith to know your gracious purpose in all things. Give us joy in them, and lead us to the building up of your reign here on earth. We ask this through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, now and forever. Amen. It's my pleasure now to welcome the Dean of Cal Lutheran's School of Management, Gerhard Appelthaler, to share some remarks.
Thank you, Reverend Mark. It is my duty and my pleasure to welcome you all today to our dedication ceremony for the Stephen Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We have a few special guests in the room today and also on streaming at home. We have a representative of the Board of Regents here, Mr. Rod Gilbert. Rod? Or two members, and Sue Chadwick. Sorry for overlooking you, Sue. Welcome to our ceremony today. We have members of our cabinet. We have Provost and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Leanne Nielsen. We have our Vice President for Advancement, Regina Biddings-Muro. We have our CFO and Vice President for Administration and Finance, Karen Davis, also an alumna of Cal Lutheran, I have to point out. And we have, of course, President Verlotta, who you will hear from in a little while. We have a few advisory council members for the Steve Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship here. We have Laura Moreno, who will also be our featured speaker later. Welcome, Laura. We have Mr. Preston Geeding, who is also one of our alums and successful entrepreneur in the making still, I might say. And we have Mr. Bob Fancook as a member of the Steve Dorfman Advisory Council as well. I hope I did not overlook anybody. If I did, please forgive me. We have students here, we have alumni here, we have faculty members and staff members here, we have Hub 101 members here, entrepreneurs and community members. And last but definitely not least, I would like to welcome the person we are celebrating here today, Mr. Steve Dorfman, who also has members of his family here, and his partner, Carol, of course. Welcome to you all, and thank you for sharing your father and your partner with us. And I should point out that there was a big event yesterday, I heard. Steve became a great-grandfather for the third time, so congratulations. And I also want to say, when we started this space in the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship 7 years ago, we did it with two goals in mind. One was to upgrade the entrepreneurship education at Cal Lutheran by providing the business school version of a laboratory so that our students could engage in experiential learning and experience what starting a company would be like. And second, as an institution that understands its role in the community, we also wanted to make sure that we contribute to the vibrancy of the economy around us. And 7 years ago, when we started, we didn't start with much. We had this beautiful space, but we had no brand, we had no reputation in the community, and now 7 years later, I think it's fair to say that we have already achieved a lot. We have had students who turn entrepreneurs, We had students who found employment at companies that started here at this very space, and we had several companies that raised millions of dollars on their path to success. None of this would have been possible, of course, with a lot of people. And I want to point out one person who is here in the room, Mike Panessis. I don't think we have a chance to thank you today, so let me do this. And of course, also our community manager, Kristen Bell, who cannot be here with us today, who is at home watching this from your computer. I don't know where the camera is, but hello, Kristen. Thank you also. And of course, this also brings me to Steve Dorfman, whose gift will launch us into the next phase of the future of entrepreneurship. You will be thanked many times tonight, but I would also like to express my personal gratitude for this incredible journey that we've been on together for the past 7 years. Thank you, Steve. And also, I must mention that none of this would have been possible with the support of the university's administration, and I'm glad to have the continued support of our president, Dr. Laura Moreno, who engineered the philanthropic pivot of Steve's gift that brings us here today. And with that, I would like to introduce our 8th and first female president in the history of Cal Lutheran, Dr. Laura Moreno.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see such a nice full room. I'm calling my brief remarks today a Grand Slam win, and I'm titling them in that way in hopes that they'll be a harbinger for tonight's game, one that builds on Bellinger's 3-run tying homer last night. So I can't help but use sports metaphors coming from the other side of the country, but I'm rooting for the hometown team. So. The first run that we logged in was with our lead donor, Steve Dorfman. I'm thrilled that we are here today to honor Steve and the very generous gift that he made to support this center. From what I can tell in talking with Steve, the structure of this fabulous gift is one that met his needs. All of us that know Steve know that he is an active, engaged, informed, intelligent member of our community. And as a philanthropist, Steve has a personal interest in being a part of the gifts that he makes. And for the last several months now, he has played 4 very material and weighty roles in the Steve Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Steve has already shaped and contributed to a very impressive advisory council that we're going to hear a little more about tonight. He's been able to meet and interact with the scholarship recipients, and I think both of you are here today, so if you can raise your hands. So it's so great to see our student recipients. Congratulations. Steve has weighed into the criteria that have been used to award the first Dorfman Incubator Grants. And he routinely talks and interacts with Mike Panessis, our first endowed professor of practice, and of course with our dean of the School of Business. The second run we scored was with the program itself. In today's higher education market, most successful academic programs enjoy several common features. They are high impact, meaning that they promote active and interactive learning, not passive learning. They are interdisciplinary. They combine theory and practice so that students have a chance to put that practice to work in the real world. And they help students see and even clear a pathway to a possible job or a career. And I am thrilled that this center, the Steve Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, embodies all of those features of a top-notch, high-impact experience. The third run we scored was with the university itself. We are now just embarking on an integrated strategic and master planning process at California Lutheran University. And this process will be a vital one as it will help us identify the academic differentiators for which the university expects to be known. And it will help us identify the philanthropic focus around which the university staff, and many of them are here today, will you please raise your hands, all of the university development staff, advancement staff. So all of us will be hitting the road, continuing to hit the road over the next 4 or 5 years to fundraise for the priorities that emerge from this process. The Steve Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship has emerged already as a California Lutheran model for what philanthropic support will look like. If any of you would like to replicate it, we can make that happen. And if we don't find any takers today, we now have something very successful that we can highlight as we firm up our next series of proposals. The fourth run is the sweetest one of all because it brings it all home to our students. Today's college educators talk a lot about being student-centric. We can wax poetically about student-centrism and academic programs and co-curricular activities and psychosocial support and career development and more. But sadly, our rhetoric sometimes defies the reality in terms of who our students are today. So I'm going to give you some statistics. So for those of you who went to college like I did in the 80s, the 70s, even the 90s, I think you might be a little surprised about who today's college students are. 40% of today's college students, and I'm talking nationally now, are 25 years old or more. 46% of them are first-generation students like Steve and myself, students whose parents didn't go to college. 42% of students in the United States of America are now students of color. 64% of all students in college work, and 40% of those work full-time. And 49% of today's students are financially independent from their parents. The types of programs and services that today's students need are exactly the kinds of programs and services offered at the Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. These include opportunities to network with professionals, opportunities to get hands-on experience in bringing concepts to life, opportunities for scholarships, opportunities to form firsthand observations about career paths and all of the places that your college degree will bring you. This center is exactly what mid-21st century students and graduates need to make their way forward in this crazy, complex, and challenging world that awaits them. So, this center hits a grand slam, and all four of the stakeholders that I've just named are here tonight to celebrate or to have a piece of the celebratory pie. It sure feels good to celebrate a quadruple win with all of you. So let's enjoy our evening together. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me in celebrating this thrilling event. Thank you, Mark, for that benediction. Thank you, Laurie, for all those nice things that you said. And I thank the fact that a number of my neighbors from University Village, right across the street, are here today. Thank you, guys. And I'm also happy that some of my family members, Gerhard and Laurie mentioned it, but I'm going to introduce them anyway. First, my daughter, Jennifer Hellworth. Raise your hand, Jennifer. Who is also an academic. She's a professor of English at a school on the East Coast, Allegheny College, on sabbatical. And next to her is my daughter, Lynn. Raise your hand. Lynn just drove an hour and a half from Cedars-Sinai, where she was with her first grandchild, born yesterday. Which was a thrilling day for me. There was two things that happened yesterday. One is the Dodgers came from behind, Laurie mentioned that, and the other was I got a great grandchild. And I'll let you figure out which was more important. They were both important in separate items. And then there's my grandson, Cedric Hellworth. And his sister is watching on video, streaming video. The camera, I think, is over there. Hi, Cameron. And we have a lot of family members and friends watching across the world, including Australia. Good day, Australia. And of course, going around the front there is my partner and bestie, Carol Kieschnick. Wave your hand, Carol. so it's a pleasure for me to have all of you here, my University Village buddies here, my Kalu buddies here, my family. It's a thrill. I stand before you a very fortunate man. Like Laurie, I was the first in my family that graduated college, and I had a lot of help, scholarships, and I also worked. I know what that's like. I mopped floors, waited on tables. I tutored the football team so that they remained eligible and didn't fail math. Lou Doss's parents wanted him to be an engineer, which was a mistake, but I scraped him through. And I refereed intramural sports. I started a business of making and selling sandwiches to late studying students. And it was helpful, but it also was a good poker player. After graduating from the University of Florida back in 1957, an important year because that was the year of Sputnik. So that kind of influenced my life and a lot of other good fortune. My timing was excellent there. And I received a Howard Hughes Fellowship from Hughes Aircraft Company and got my master's degree at the University of Southern California. At Hughes, I was extremely fortunate to fall in with a bunch of brilliant people. And together, over decades, we really made a difference in this world and made a better world in a lot of ways. I myself either participated in or led in developing of new technologies, mostly involved with space, weather satellites, taking pictures from satellites of Earth, planetary exploration, Jupiter, Venus, eyes and ears from space that helped our national security, worked on that also, and communication satellites, over 100 launched globally, and I attended many of the launches. Every time I see one of these rockets launched, my pulse quickens automatically. And I'm also proud of the fact that I participated in pioneering cable TV and satellite TV. So those of you who watch television, even today, you do it through satellites that I may have been involved with in the past. So I retired from Hughes in 1999 as vice chairman. I started at the bottom, I worked my way up to the top. And I began a new phase of my life, the current phase. And part of this phase is philanthropy. I, as I've said, had good luck, good fortune, success, and I want to give back. And have been looking at ways of doing that and have the fortune of being able to have some resources to do that. And I have always been interested in higher education. Of course, as you already know, my daughter is a college professor. I learned a lot about liberal arts colleges from her. And while I was at Hughes, I helped start an engineering school at an HBCU, Morgan State, and I have a honorary doctor's degree from Morgan State. If you should call me Dr. Dorfman. But I don't. Actually, I worked harder for that than. Anyway, I was a visiting professor at MIT for a year after I left Hughes. And then after moving to Thousand Oaks about 10 years ago, I found myself living across the street from a fine academic institution, California Lutheran University, CLU. And in fact, I still walk there frequently. It's a nice campus, a beautiful campus, as a matter of fact. And so I said, well, I should start getting invited and involved there. And so I started looking at options. Gerhard reminded me I set up a scholarship program for summer students as a starter. But then I was in the advisory council for the School of Management, which is what led us to here today, ultimately. Most of you know I started by committing as a primary donor to a School of Management building, a much-needed structure, and I really enjoyed working with Gerhardt and the architects in creating a great building which someday will be built, in my opinion, but not for a while. I had a condition on my gift, which is I wanted the building to be built fairly rapidly so I can observe and enjoy watching the construction and the initiation of the building. But then the pandemic came, and then it became imprudent in the financial environment that followed the pandemic to proceed on the schedule that I wanted, and it would have to wait a long and indeterminate time. And I've reached a point in my life I just didn't want to wait a long time. And so there was a crisis at the end of 2020. Laura had just come on, just anointed as a president. And she and I and others huddled for what ultimately became a philanthropic pivot. And I had help from my good friend Russ Young, who was on the Board of Regents at that time. Russ, hi, I know you're watching from Seattle. And Gerhardt and Mike Panassis and members of the CLU staff to engineer a change. Instead of bricks and mortars, we start a center. And that's how the Stephen Dorfman Center for, this is a mouthful, for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Count up the syllables once, it's a lot of syllables. So I hope you don't mind if I call it I&E from time to time. And I think we've made progress, even in the short time that we started. We have our first scholarship students. You two, raise your hand again. You know, I know they're smiling behind those masks, and that's been a pleasure. We formed an advisory committee that is super advisory committee. Some of the members are here, and you can hear later on from Laura Moreno to talk about what she's done. And so we have a good advisory council to help us, and we formed the board for the first selection of the Dorfman incubators. The plan that we're going to start some businesses up with a CalLU stamp on them, and that's going to be this fall. And so we're getting going there. And then we formed this organization, the Center for the Stephen Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, with a endowed professor of practice, Michael Panassis, who's going to speak later, which gave a degree of credibility and stature to the program that's going to be very helpful for Mike and for the future of this program. So we've done all that already, and I'm expecting more. And it's going to be my pleasure to watch the center mature over the next few years, satisfying my resolve, my desire to see the results of my gifting while I'm still alive and active and can still walk over there and check things out personally. Giving while living is what the philanthropists call it, and that's what I plan to do. And I also look forward to I&E becoming part of the educational experience. And I hope that's going to materialize out of this operation and be strengthened. Entrepreneurship is a broad term, often associated with businesses, but it's applicable to everything. It's really creating ideas and making them happen. And I think that applies for everything that you might do, including formation of a DIE program, or social programs, or organizational programs, as well as businesses that make money. And as we know, sometimes they don't make money. I have a few of those too. And so it will be satisfying for me to have my gift make a positive difference for the CLU as an institution, for the students of CLU, and for the community. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I think I've been introduced enough that you know who I am now, hopefully. It's good to see so many faces in this room again. It's been a long time. Some of you may not recognize me anymore because of how long it's been that we've been together, so I wanted to help you. You got it now? It's really, what we do so requires human contact. It's very difficult to do what we do in this room, in this space, without it. So it's wonderful to have people back in this room and to celebrate this very special occasion. So I have, now that I'm a professor, I have to have slides. There may be a quiz afterwards, so please pay attention. But I've got to start with this. Oops, I got to go back one slide. Yes, there's a Greek festival. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm deeply involved with the Ventura County Greek Festival. When anyone reads my bio, they skip over the professor practice part, they skip over the angel investor, they go right to the Greek Festival. So we're having our Greek Festival for the first time in a year and a half at Freedom Park in Camarillo this weekend. I'll be there all weekend. If you get your tickets online and use our promo code, admission is free. But I thought I would get that out of the way before we get started on the good part. I hope to see you there.
Will there be Greek dancing?
There will be Greek dancing. We're trying to figure out how to social distance that.
Long 6-foot arms.
Well, there were some pictures early on in the pandemic. They were using broom handles. So we'll figure something out. When you're building a community like you are here, communities are difficult things to build. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes years. And the success of a community is based on the people involved in that community, but there are moments that stand out where you say to yourself, there's something special about this. So I dug up one of those moments, and it happened on September 10th, 2014. We have an event called the Entrepreneur Speaker Series. This was event number 1. Salty Girl Seafood, I just want to point out, that is the back of Steve Dorfman's head. While Steve pivoted with his donation, Steve has been a valued member of this community from the very beginning. And his counsel, his feedback, his involvement with our students and with our community is greatly appreciated. More than the money. So I want to go through what Steve's gift entails, just so you know, because you're going to be seeing the results of it over the next 7 years. Number 1, okay, one more time. Elsa and Elaine. Now you got to stand up and wave. I'm going to make, I didn't have you do a speech. Elsa Kleberud comes to us from Seattle. Go Mariners. And Elaine comes to us from way distant Simi Valley. Simi Valley? And Elaine also brought her family. Mom and Dad, good job. Now, I don't want to embarrass, you can sit down. I don't want to embarrass them too much, but I do want to make this clear. They come to us as entrepreneurs. They've already started their own businesses and made some of their own money, and that spirit that they have came out during the scholarship interviews. So we're going to have 2 Dorfman Scholars every year for the next 7 years, and I can't wait to see what they do with their careers when they graduate, because I'm already just so impressed and so excited to have a chance to work with you. Part 2 of Steve's gift is what we're calling a student competition fund. This is a fund that's dedicated to encouraging students to compete, not in a winner-take-all, blood on the floor kind of competition, but to encourage interaction and constructive conflict and community building. The first event to be funded by Steve's gift is a startup weekend that we're having next month, November 12th, 13th, and 14th. We've had these events for years. It's an event where The community can work on startup ideas over a weekend. I know that sounds a little strange, but they spend the whole weekend, mostly here. We encourage them to go home to sleep, working on startup ideas. And this year, Steve's Gift is funding that event, and that will be the first of many. The Incubator Grants, I'm so excited about this program. Part of Steve's Gifts is a $1 million gift for us to give to local startups. Started by Cal Lutheran Alums, using Cal Lutheran students as employees. Something interesting about this program, when we decided that when it was on the table, we thought, this sounds like a really good, really cool idea. Other universities must have already done this. So we started, Gerhard and I started calling our contacts and asking, have you ever done anything like this? And the response pretty consistently was, no, but if you figure out how to do it, let us know, because we'd be interested. So it's been a little complicated to get it sorted out. We think we have an approach that works for a university and that will be very valuable for our entrepreneurs. We have in the room today some alumni. Many of them took classes from me who I expect to see applying for this grant. And we'll have more news about that soon. And then Professor of Practice and Entrepreneurship. There are a couple of things I want to say about this. First of all, if you look at the title, you'll realize that the acronym for Professor of Practice and Entrepreneurship is POPE. So while I'm not the Pope, I am now a Pope. And if your boss has a sense of humor, 3 days after you find out you're going to be a Pope, you get this in the mail. So, perhaps most importantly, the Pope now works for the Lutherans. I think that's important. Steve, I want to share a story with you, and it takes a little bit of time to tell, but please indulge me about how important this is to me. My grandfather went to Columbia University every day to wash dishes in the student dining hall kitchen, because that's what he had a 6th grade education, that's what he could do. He worked his way up to be the head chef in the faculty dining hall, and he left Columbia to start his own luncheonette in Manhattan. That was his dream. That's why he came to this country. That was his first dream. His second dream was so that his children and his children's children could get a college education. He used to tell people on the street when they asked him what he did, he'd say, I go to Columbia. Just to watch the confusion on their faces. How could this 30-something immigrant who barely speaks English go to Columbia? If anybody has experienced my sense of humor, now you know where it comes from. Of my grandparents' generation, none of them went to high school, let alone college. Of my parents' generation, my mom was brilliant. She's my inspiration for what I do and who I am. My mom would have been a wonderful student at Cal Lutheran. She was a fit for a liberal education. She was a writer. She was a musician. She loved to dance. And she was good at math. She wasn't allowed to go to college. As much as she loved my grandfather, women didn't go to college. They got husbands. I once asked my mom, because it was made clear very early on I was going to college. And I asked my mom, where did you go to college? And she told me in a very serious voice, I went to the School of Hard Knocks. For the next 20 years, I assumed that the School of Hard Knocks was a community college in the Bronx. I finally figured it out. But of my parents' generation, one went to college. That was my dad. It was on a football scholarship, and if it wasn't for that football scholarship, he may not have gone to college either. It was made very clear that I was going to college, and of my generation, about half of us went. The happy ending to this story is that of my kids' generation and of my cousins' kids, they're all college graduates. We have an engineer, we have a nurse, we have a couple of entrepreneurs. We have professionals, and I think it's a testament to the value of a college education, the impact it can have, not just on an individual, but on that individual's family. I so wish my grandparents could be here to see this. I think they would be so tickled that their grandson is a professor. They'd even be more tickled that their great-grandchildren all graduated from college, but this would be second place. So from my family, Steve, not just from me, thank you so much. This means so much. This is where you applaud for Steve again. One of the most important things we did as part of Steve's gift was to form our first advisory council. Some of them are here today. I don't want to introduce all of them. Bob Famcook. Bob is the least photographed man in the world, I think, because I could not find any on Google. So he kind of raised his hand. I'm not going to ask him to do it again. You have to go figure out who he is. Because these are networking events, and you should meet the people around you. But when you do meet him, try to take a picture and email it to me. Elsa's got it, good. Get outside, maybe take the mask off. We have a number of Cal Lutheran alums. The great part about starting an entrepreneurship program at Cal Lutheran was the entrepreneurs were already here. It really didn't take a lot of effort to find them. They're already here, and we've educated more, and we're expecting great things from them. But this is a wonderful advisory board. This grant program, they were especially indispensable at getting us advice, helping us form it, and I'm so looking forward to working with them in the coming years. So what happens next? In the parlance of entrepreneurs, we call Steve's gift our A round. When a startup gets to its A round, that's its first significant funding, where it's proven its business model, it's proven its value to its customers and to its constituents, and it's now time to grow. And that's where we are. So the next couple of years, what you'll see from us is more of the same, but you'll also see new and innovative programs from us. What we want to put front and center is the relationship between the liberal arts and entrepreneurship. We call that Liberal Starts. This is not an official logo. I own the domain name, by the way. I have for 7 years and have been waiting to introduce it. We believe that there is an important relationship between the two. The liberal arts are about what makes us human, about who we are, what our relationship is with the world, and what is it about the world that we need to understand. Entrepreneurship is about taking what's up here and doing something with it. And while we don't want to be a vocational college that's about specific professions, we believe that a little bit of innovation and entrepreneurship taught to every student can make a huge difference in their careers. And I'm not talking about startups only. I'm talking about working at a big business. I'm talking about starting a nonprofit that focuses on social justice. I'm talking about I'm talking about the Ventura County Greek Festival. I'm talking about all of the things that you do on a regular basis that requires you to take a risk, that requires you to do something special, and that requires you to help the people around you and make a difference in the world. That's what we're about. And you'll hear more about this. I already covered this slide, kind of. We're about taking what's in your head, making it real. And we have a specific idea about how to go about that. We really believe that, I should say this too, this isn't just about what entrepreneurship can do for the liberal arts, it's the opposite. We believe that the study of innovation and entrepreneurship can benefit a lot from the way that we teach the liberal arts. Something else that's important to us, it's important to Cal Lutheran, it's especially important to us, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I can think of no profession that is plagued by implicit bias as much as entrepreneurship is. If you look at who the venture capitalists are, they're all white and male. It's difficult if you're a person of color to start a business, let alone be successful with one. And we want to be a part of this solution. So these photos are from our Do Venture Fair. What we find with our student population is regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of gender identity, when you really level the playing field for them, when you really give them an opportunity to do something special, they rise to the occasion. What I would like to do and what I would like to see is that, so my official title is Executive Director, Stephen Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and Stephen Dorfman Professor of Practice. So I'm a double Dorfman. I've had enough of a career and lived enough of a life that I have nothing to prove to anybody. I'm ready to give up that director's title. And I would like for the next executive director of the Stephen Dorfman Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship to be a woman of color. And I'd like for it to happen within the next 5 years, if not sooner. I think my grandparents would be proud of that. I think that the American dream is very much about being in charge of your own destiny. It's not being the next Elon Musk. It's being able to do with your life what you want, being able to make a difference in the world. And I'm excited. It's been a great 7 years. I'm looking forward to the next 7. And I'm excited to work with all of these folks who are a part of our center. In the middle, especially our doers. This facility is run by students. They make everything happen here. In fact, in this room next to us is Connor Lowe, one of our doers. Connor is running the live stream. So he can't be here to take a bow, but you can all point to the camera's right back there. It's up in the ceiling, so wave to Connor. Thank you very much, Connor. I want to thank 2 people. There have been a lot of thank yous tonight, but I want to thank 2 people in particular. One is Leanne Nielsen is here. Raise your hand, Leanne, please. Leanne is our Provost and Chief Academic Officer. She's got one of the hardest jobs in the university because she has to herd the cats that are faculty. And can you imagine being the Chief Academic Officer and how much patience it requires with the people who operate a space like this? But she's given us room to find our place, not just here, but on the main campus, and I'm very thankful for that, Leanne. And then the last person I need to thank is my partner in crime, Gerhard Apfeltaler. This is Gerhard's vision. He started this. And I think with a great amount of elbow grease on his part, making sure that this space happened, making sure that the center started. He is a tireless advocate for innovation and entrepreneurship. It's a pleasure to work with him, and I so appreciate you being my boss, Gerhard. Best boss ever. Okay, that's enough talking. I really want you to hear from Laura. I should mention, I showed that picture of our first Entrepreneur Speaker Series event. This is number 65. Wow. We've done a bunch of these. A lot of them are on YouTube, in the School of Management's YouTube channel. But we've had some exceptional speakers, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Laura. Not quite yet, though, because we have to do our ribbon cutting. So if I could ask Heather McCauley from the chamber, the Conejo Chamber, to come up with the coolest set of scissors I have ever seen. I want one of these, and I'm not even sure why or what I would do with them.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you to stay up here for me
Okay.
just a minute. I want to present a certificate to you, just of congratulations. I'm inspired. I'm actually in tears over here listening to your story and listening to your story. And from all of you, you can tell there's such heart and passion and vision, and you're doing it for all the right reasons, and you're going to change lives. And seeing the two, Elsa and both of you back there, congratulations, and we're just thrilled, and I'm inspired, and I'm really pleased and honored to be here. Thank you for sharing your story as well, and we'd like to also present you a certificate of congratulations on this moment, and so I want to present that to you as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Congratulations. Okay. And so now's the fun part. I'm going to invite a few people up here, and then we're going to get the whole crowd in on this, because this is a very, very exciting moment. So I would like to ask Mr. Dorfman if you could come join us. President Varletta and Dean Appeltaler. Mike, you're already up here. Our Dorfman scholars, Elsa and Elaine, to come join us up here. We're going to get situated. Once we do, we're going to take a photo, and then we're going to have everyone join in a countdown with us. So we're just going to move this over. Go. Perfect. So this is the fun part. These are real. Nobody believes me till we actually use them. They're sharp too. They are very sharp.
I made an omission which I want to correct now when I was talking about all my colleagues from University Village, a great group of people. There's been a book written about the relationship between UVTO and Cal-Lu, which I think is good. It's the wisdom of the elders and the learning of the youngsters. It's good. And we have our executive director of University Village, Thousand Oaks here, Dimitri, and I'd like him to raise his hand so you can see who he is.
Okay, so we'll move on to our keynote speaker. So Laura Moreno is on our advisory council and lives up in the Bay Area and was generous enough to come down to speak to us tonight. Has been instrumental in the work that we've been doing, especially setting up the grant. So you're speaker number 65, no pressure. But Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm honored and humbled to be here today. I'll start at the beginning. I'll share a little bit about my story. I am originally from Guadalajara, Mexico, Tapatía. I'm bilingual. I was born in Mexico, so I don't know if we have any Latinos in the house, but nice. So, my story started there. I was 7 when I came to the U.S., and my father came here, back in the day in the 70s on a green card, started working in the U.S., sending money back to his family in Mexico, and he was fortunate enough to bring us here, and so that led to starting my education here in the U.S. at a very early age. Yes, I knew no English when I came here. And so that actually, I think, prepared me for a lot of what was to come, because I was sitting in many classrooms where I had no idea what anyone was saying, and so I constantly had to raise my hand and ask questions. Otherwise, I didn't know. But there was a pivotal moment that happened to me at a very early age, and this will kind of lead into the story of building relationships and networks. There was a man named Jesse who was the janitor at my elementary school. And every day after school, the janitor would help me with my English and my homework. And today I still, I will never forget him. I don't know where he is now, but he is the one who helped me through elementary school. And that was very, very pivotal for me. And then even after I, went on in my education, I'll be the first to say, I wasn't very good in school, but somehow something changed for me when I got into college. I had to work my way through college. I, paid all my own way through college. I got involved in something that really inspired me, and that was criminal justice. So I really, really was focused on how to get involved in the justice system, and my dream was to become a lawyer. So after college, which I graduated from California State University, Sacramento, I went and, we all have those moments after college of like, is this what I really want to do? For some reason, I thought I would be a good FBI agent. I went and applied for the FBI, and they said, why don't you go out and get some real-world experience and come back to us? So at that point, I ventured down to San Diego, and I started my career at a broker-dealer in San Diego. And that opened my eyes to a whole new industry that I had no idea was going to really change the future for me. And that I started working in Wall Street. So, on operations, opening new accounts, then I moved into compliance, then I got my Series 7, I started trading, I ended up working, going out and teaching a lot of brokers on how to use technology and how to really see their commissions online. And so that then created an opportunity for me to move to New York, the Big Apple. That really kind of changed things for me. But along the way, I met these 3 gentlemen. The first one was the CEO of the first company that I worked for in San Diego, again, the broker-dealer. Stayed very connected to him and always was giving him updates on what I was doing and how things were going. And then when I went to New York, I met the other 2 gentlemen. One of them was the CEO of the company that I worked with. Again, stayed very connected, always asked questions, raised my hand about everything that was going on. So from there, I basically seeked out mentors, and they were pivotal mentors for me to be able to push forward. Where's the thing? There we go. So I created my champions, my clients, and my sponsors to help guide me through the next chapter of my career. And in that chapter, there were definitely few moments that I was like, where am I going in my career? You know, I was in the financial industry, I was in New York, I was working on Wall Street, and because I had a champion, and a lot of those champions were my clients, they were also going out and advocating for me. And so I was at TD Ameritrade, and what happened was they said, why don't you go out and start your own business? Because I had a passion for fashion. So I actually was, in 2009, one of the first to come out with the model of fashion subscription. So I was running around Silicon Valley. So I moved back from New York to San Francisco. I was running around Silicon Valley, pounding down doors and telling everybody about fashion subscription. So what it was fashion subscription? It was like, we deliver a box of clothing directly to your doorstep. You try it on in the comfort of your own home. Whatever you love, you keep. Whatever you don't, you return. See, I can still do my spiel. And so that led me to start my first company. So I started a fashion subscription service that later sold to Stitch Fix, which is publicly traded today on NASDAQ. And there were highs and there were lows during that entire experience. But what I would say is that to be an entrepreneur and to have that experience, you have to be resilient. And you have to really push through so many things because you have to love what you do. And I did. I had a passion for that. And I knew when to push. And I remember the first time I let somebody go, I cried with them. It's just so many highs and lows. But out of that, because I had my sponsors, my mentors, and all of the people that supported me to get to that point, I was able to take to the next step. I will say that when I was going around Silicon Valley and pitching my business, it was very difficult. I was not only there was very few females in venture, there were very few Latinos in venture, even fewer Latinas in venture, so nobody really got my concept, so I did not get funding initially. It took a long time for that to happen. I had to bootstrap my company. I had to earn that investment by showing growth and sales. So that's what I did. You know, I launched it, I got sales, and then it came to an exit. So then what happened? The next chapter. I met my husband, I had a little girl, I took some time off after I sold my business, and then I was like, well, what's next? What's next for me? I had the opportunity to come back into the work world, ironically in a place that I started, in the financial world. But I used my network to help me get there. So I got a job at NASDAQ running new listings and capital markets for the West Coast. I worked with some of the biggest companies that you've seen hit the market. I did the Airbnb IPO, I did the Lyft IPO, Beyond Meat. There's a lot of Southern California companies that I took public. And so what does that mean? That means that you actually start working with these companies, you relate to the founder, and you help guide them through probably the most tedious times that are to come. How to take a company from being a private company to being a public company and being listed on Wall Street. And so out of that experience, I can tell you it was the most wonderful experience that I've ever had, to be able to work with some of the most innovative companies. So it was really a moment for me that life came 360, because not only was I an entrepreneur, but then I worked in the financial industry, and now I'm guiding entrepreneurs and being able to provide that guidance to them. The last year that I was at NASDAQ, I started focusing on things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really helping shed a light on why I saw so many few women and people that looked like me that were taking companies public. So after I left NASDAQ, it was really a crazy time when I left. I left in March of 2020. So the first week was like, yay, I'm going to go out, I'm excited, I have all of these great opportunities. The next week, the whole entire world shuts down. But because I have that entrepreneur spirit, and because of all of my mentors, my sponsors, and the people that were there from the beginning for me, they encouraged me to reach back out to my client base and do what I do best, help support companies, help guide them to the public markets. And so I started my own advisory firm. So that's what I do today. I help support companies at later stage and at earlier stage as well, so Series A, to go public and to get ready to grow. I also help support them through capital, which was, again, something that was a very big challenge for me. So I specifically work with a fund, Latitude Ventures. It's a $100 million fund, and we invest in Latinos. And so for me now, life is about how I'm going to give back. As Steve said, it's so great to be able to do that and to share that education and that experience that I had. And a lot of it was timing, a lot of it was my community and my network. And so I think that what is being built here around entrepreneurship is so special, because I think a lot of it has to do with that, with how you can help provide those resources to those people who might not have had those at an early age. And so I've been giving back through, obviously, being a part of Cal Lutheran and helping develop this. I'm also really focused on being more active in the Latino community so I can help support those entrepreneurs, and then continuing to share my story through a book that I was recently a part of, and hopefully that'll inspire more to take action and be a part of a broader community to support new entrepreneurs. Thank you.
We have time for a few questions, if anyone has any questions for Laura. Or you just want to get right to it?
That was terrific.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What's your definition of an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a great question. We were chatting about that earlier. I think, what I mentioned is somebody who is very resilient and has an idea that they want to persevere and grow with. And really that's unstoppable. I think that a lot of the things that maybe don't allow that to come to fruition today is because in the past there maybe hasn't been as equal opportunity or resources given. But I think it's somebody that has a true great, you can take that idea, bring it to fruition with a lot of resilience, heart, and passion, because it's a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. That was wonderful. You're going to join us for dinner? Excellent. So Laura will be around for dinner. If you want to ask questions or continue the conversation, please do. Dinner tonight is from Urbane Cafe, and we choose Urbane Cafe a lot here for one very simple reason. Urbane was founded by a Cal Lutheran alum, Tom Holt. Tom was, I think, speaker number 4 or 5 in the Entrepreneur Speaker Series. So which way is, oh, it's right over here, it's coming out now, but please enjoy yourself, network a little bit. Thank you so much for coming. One more thank you for Steve. Thank you very much. You might as well enjoy it. Who knows how many thank yous are coming. Thank you very much.